Hey everybody, and welcome back to SharePoint TV. As you can see today, we did our best to replicate an airplane. So here we all are on Flight 250, nice and cozy, fighting over the armrest. This morning we've got an exciting segment here for you, coming to you live from the SharePoint conference here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. So we're going to call this segment a engineering sardine, since we have everybody packed together in the same little can here on SharePoint TV today. And actually what we've got is a really exciting topic, because throughout the week, we've heard a lot about Microsoft Search, right? So on Monday, we kind of opened it up right away with a good 5-minute search demo in Jeff's keynote. And then on that afternoon, on day one's afternoon, Jeff Teeper joined us and talked a little more about Microsoft Search. And then yesterday, we had a session on Microsoft Search, really an overview session, just to kind of get people familiar. And then later on in the afternoon, we also had an extensibility session to a certain degree, as well as covered predominantly administration. So really, what we focused on throughout days 1 and 2 were the IT professional aspect of Microsoft Search. And those unfamiliar that haven't heard about it yet, which I would be highly surprised, is Microsoft Search is really this kind of amalgamation of technology. So we got ourselves a little blender, and we sat it on our kitchen counter, and we sprinkled in 2 parts of the AI tech from Bing, and 3 parts of the insights from Graph, and then we blended it for a while, and the next thing you knew, particularly if you're in targeted release, this awesome little search box popped up in a prominent place right there in the header. And then to get started is super simple too, because all you have to do is click in there and you get your 0 and 10 queries. So it's really cool tech. But like I said, everything has been IT professional. What I brought all of you here today for on this flight is really to talk about empowering developers. So, and that's kind of the basis, or what we really want to kind of get into today is how are we empowering developers?
Good, cool. Let's get started.
Yeah. Sure. So let me start. There are 3 things that we are going to talk about, and so I'm going to start with the first one, which is content extensibility. Mm-hmm. One of the key challenges that we see a lot of customers and developers telling us is, our customers have a lot of data that's not just an M365 that lives outside, right. In their on-prem, in the mm-hmm. cloud, and they really want to search all that data and then bring it into search. And so how do we do that? And as part of that story, what we are providing is a connectors API.
Whoa.
So these these developers can bring in that content into search. And really, another very important aspect of that is security. Mm-hmm. If you think about search, when you bring the content, the users need to search for only the information that they have access to. So the solution that we are working on is, again, emphasizes on security a lot. So you bring in the ACLs and you preserve that, so that is also enforced during the search time. Now, when you think about the API itself, there are a few considerations for our developers. Mm-hmm. One is, you first have to, you have a source system. That's, they typically work with a source system.
Right.
And when you work with that, you have to first define what that source or input schema looks like. Mm-hmm. And then, and so there'll be an API where you define that, and then you have to map that the input schema to a search schema. Okay, right. And then that's step 2. Mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, the third thing is you start ingesting your content into search, conforming to that search schema.
Right.
Okay? So this is typically the range of APIs or the steps that a developer would go to, mm-hmm. and we will provide a lot of flexibility on top of that. A developer would want to customize that.
Right.
They would want to bring in their own custom content, and they want to extend that schema. And so those are all the capabilities that we are working on. And so that is one key part of bringing that data. And the second aspect is now, how do you visualize, how do you extend that search search aspects of it? And for that, I'll turn it over to Ram, to talk more about that.
So as Shiva mentioned, there is a whole range of experiences that you can build on top of the data that you bring from these third-party applications.
Right.
And they can vary from things like books to tickets to files to, and the kind of visualizations that you see customers wanting to build on the search page are very in gamut. There's a whole spectrum.
Right.
Our goal is to provide out of the box a best experience so that you're productive from day one. But we understand, and we heard quite a bit from customers that they need this customization capability.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, and there's a whole spectrum here. So what we are trying to do is provide you some out-of-the-box capabilities that will get you productive in maybe a week's time by helping you customize all these things. And so if you look at some of our things that we are proposing and we want to go do are these three constructs that we want to deliver.
Right.
One is what we call verticals, and these are things that you may be familiar if you were in the SharePoint world.
Yep.
And this is about having this scope view where you can build and bring in content that you care about and that you want to render on. So for example, in this example we have ServiceNow, and you want to bring in ServiceNow tickets in one specific view, you can do that.
So you'd be able to create a vertical.
We'll be able to create a vertical.
Okay.
Then you'll be able to create custom filters on those verticals. So if you want to filter by some knowledge base articles types, or you want to filter by date, or you filter by author, those are things that you can now custom build on top of that.
Right.
And then you will also be able to bring in custom layouts for these data, because tickets don't look like files, they don't look like sites, they have a different view and rendering model. And so we plan on using the underlying adaptive cart framework to help you build that system.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so this is like leveraging, there is already a thriving ecosystem on top of the adaptive cart declarative framework. We said we'll reuse that and empower search. So that should get our developers excited and empower them to go build these things.
Yeah, because one of the first things we heard through the sessions yesterday is, obviously, those were more BDM centric sessions, IT pro centric sessions, but developers still came to those sessions. The reason they did is because they were just looking for a place to learn more, about what we're going to do to empower them, from a Microsoft Search perspective as we move forward. So we've kind of covered that, and I'll just let you pick up from there again.
Yeah, so we understand that these are tailored experiences still. They have to conform to the SERP model.
Right.
But there are some customers who have said, no, we want to build a very custom, unique experience that's going to look nothing like the search page, and they want to customize everything about it. Yeah, so for that, I'm going to transfer this to Nicholas, and so we can talk more about it.
If we come back to that screen we had, just for our audience that's watching. So a couple of times throughout the conversation, you've heard us say SERP. So SERP, for those of you unfamiliar, is a search engine red panda. No, it's search engine results page. But a couple of things just to point out. There's the search box right up there in the header. That's kind of that UX queue that you have Microsoft Search in your tenant, because you start to see that search box shift to one side. But that's when we're talking about SERP, that's kind of what we're talking about. And Brent's got it right. Chef Brent's got it right with the red panda there in the chat. So coming to Nicholas, do you want to kind of expand upon this story that we're telling? So we've heard about these three phases, largely ingestion centric, and then we transitioned into talking about UX extensibility, which is really cool. I think the example that you gave us there, particularly with adaptive cards and tickets, makes for a great story, because the presentation is going to be different, because it's fundamentally different from a file. Every entity's unique.
Yeah, but so as Ram was mentioning, the extensibility that we propose is very UX driven, and you are kind of on rails, which is great if you want the ServiceNow ticket, is great. But it's also important to acknowledge that in the SharePoint communities, people have been doing a lot of things by their own, and they are used to having even more flexibility. So today, Microsoft Search is not exposed as an API to developers. Right. SharePoint developers still have to use the good old SharePoint REST API. What we are doing with Microsoft Search is we are building something that adds on top of existing workload. And today, if you look in Graph or in SharePoint, you already have an API to search email. You already have an API to search files from Graph. people plus the SharePoint API. So there are multiple entry points when you want to target search. And with Microsoft Search, we are building something that is trying, at least in the user experience, to abstract that. Under the cover, we have been built here that kind of aggregates across all these data sources and where the relevance is built.
Right.
We want to give that to developers. We don't want to keep it first for the first party. Getting out for the first party was a stepping stone, and we needed that, but we acknowledge that we also need to give this capability to developers. So this is what is coming. So we are opening a private preview for a few customers and especially partner ISVs that are really working already with search to have access to this brand new API. The API will be surfaced through Graph, so it will be graph.microsoftsearch/beta/search. This is coming, and the way we are thinking. So for the moment, we are limiting the scope of the content to 3 pivots, which will be OneDrive for Business files, message from email message, and calendar events.
Right.
That's just a stepping stone. It's not. It's the beginning of the journey, and more content sources are going to come. So the next one will be definitely all the SharePoint content that should come up here. And over time, by Ignite, we will bring even more content. Once you adopt this, you get something that the SharePoint API does not give you. SharePoint API is very specialized on content that exists in SharePoint. What we're bringing with this is you will get access to more and more data. So that's kind of the promise. In terms of feature, we are again starting slow with some basic search features. So we are primarily talking about paging, a little bit of relevance, but all the complex feature around search, like working with aggregation, refiners, collapsing results, all these things are not yet baked into the Microsoft Search API. Over time, we are planning to add this with the challenge of how do you address a refiner across multiple different sources. That's an interesting. What does it mean to refine across email and files? So that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because the one thing that we talked about throughout the sessions is this idea of search coherence, and that what Microsoft Search brings you is the ability to search holistically across Microsoft 365, and then sounds like over the course of time beyond that, the walls and boundaries of Microsoft 365, but that's probably a hard problem to solve, right? So you have, today, just using Microsoft Search and Bing as an example, you're surfacing a broad array of data across Microsoft 365, Teams, Conversations, Yammer, and if you think about it, they don't have really any natural affinity between one another or defined affinity, so you have to define that in order for that refiner to be able to do that. So I can imagine that's peeling back a lot of layers of a proverbial onion or a very large banana on our screens. So I can completely understand that challenge.
And also the Search API is where all the content that Shiva was talking about, when you are going to ingest, define your own content types and you want to ingest those, this is where this content will surface.
So I just want to add 2 more things, which is, again, for all the stuff that we're talking about, scale is super important.
Right.
Like these customers have a ton of data, and so the APIs that we're building, the framework we're building has to be highly scalable. So that's something that's, really top of mind for us, and we will, we're building this framework that is just not, that can scale to all these enterprise requirements. The other thing is, a search system is only as good as the ranking, the ranking is front and center, right? Information. I mean, our users are gonna, really look for that information to show up on that first page. So the framework we are providing and the APIs we're providing will be able, developers will be able to participate by providing some sort of ranking hints at the time of ingestion. And we are also thinking about how to, improve the framework so that, a lot of these customers don't have to sit and dial a lot of knobs to try to make it as seamless as possible. But if they have the need to really go and, have to tune that further, we will also provide those capabilities. So this is being thought through not just from a framework perspective, but also as an API. How do we make that a lot more efficient end to end?
We are in very early thinking on that front.
But it's really exciting to even, to see that, we're sitting here talking about some things that are near term, some things that are just top of mind. But it's good to even know that we're thinking about these things, because our search journey has been a long journey. It started with SharePoint search a long time ago. I mean, we can harken all the way back to the Tahoe days, and then we worked our way into 2006 and 7 as we planned that release, and that's when we acquired FAST. And then ultimately in 2013 we acquired Yammer, which gave us Open Graph. And then we, our team in Oslo built our first version of hybrid search, which was a challenge unto itself, right? Because it was 3 effective models. There was this inbound model, an outbound model, and then there was a bidirectional model. But all of those were query federation. So you had 2 result blocks. Neither had affinity to one another. So you ended up with the refiner challenge, that you just discussed, because they didn't have affinity, you had to refine separately. So the content didn't have any kind of relationship. So, and then we introduced our cloud search service application as the next step in the journey on the hybrid search model to allow the Office 365 index to ingest from the on-prem content for SharePoint. So, it's good to see that at least it's top of mind, because, obviously, we've been on a journey for a long time, and it's been top of mind for us, but it's good to see that we've got a great team collected that's working on it. So, with that said, as we start our descent back into the airport, so make sure everybody's got their seatbelts on. What's coming next then from a search API perspective? We talked very lightly, in the overview session. We just kind of said, there's some stuff coming. But
I can talk a little bit about that. Before that, I would say that even though Microsoft Search API is coming, the existing Search API that exists at the workload level will remain. If you're an email guy and you're using Search in Outlook, this will remain. So we're just adding something on top of it that will include more capability and provides the breadth and probably less depth than when you work at the workload level. So what is coming, what we plan to bring on is first SharePoint in the Microsoft Search API is SharePoint content, so files, sites, anything that exists in SharePoint, people, connectors. Data is the next big one, and this is really something very new that will not come, the connectors content will not come through the existing SharePoint API.
Right.
You will have to go through the Microsoft Search API to get this content. And the other aspect is all the things that you can see that are in the what we call the instant answer card. So the bookmarks that show at the top of the page, the building location, the Q&A. This is the type of thing that we want to expose through the Microsoft Search API, so that if you want to build a custom experience or you have a mobile app and you want these instant answers to show, you would be able to leverage this API.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and just on the connector front, just to expand, like the ingestion API, we are targeting a preview to the end of this year. So as we get late Q4 of this year. So I think as we get closer to that timeline, you should see more announcements around it. Again, we are really very hard at work on that, and so we are really hoping to wow people with that.
Yeah, I'm sure as we kind of work our way through the summer and into Ignite, we're definitely going to have more to say as we get closer and closer, into Ignite, and then we're towards the end of the year and moving into the following year. So it's going to be it's great because we're on this journey, and we've got a couple of stops along the way where we can continue to talk about it and share where we're at. I think for those traditional ISVs that will invite early to get that feedback and that experience. That's going to be great to be able to see some of the things that they'll be able to build, and then obviously I'm looking forward to what our customers, those professional developers, that aren't associated with kind of the classic ISV, those creatives, just to kind of see what they're able to come up with.
So in UX customization, we'll also add some capabilities for Ignite, and we'll have verticals, refiners, and result types. But it's a roadmap and it's a journey. And we will keep on adding a bunch of capabilities every quarter to this customization capabilities.
Awesome. Yeah. So anything else? Any parting thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, for the audience. Yeah, if you're interested in participating to the internal preview of the Microsoft Search API, shoot me an email. I'm Nicholas.Moreau, Moreau, Microsoft.com, so you can shoot me an email. We're looking for motivated developers that want to build on what we have to provide today. So today, as I was saying, we don't provide everything, but if you want to build more on personalized items, so SharePoint, calendar, message, that could be the right time for you.
Yeah, sounds great. So we had a great flight today. We didn't hit any turbulence. The banana's in place.
Yeah, that's safe.
Still got my coffee. So everything worked out well from a flight perspective. We have just gotten down below 10,000 feet, so we're about to lose our wireless connection as we work our way into the runway. Thanks everybody again for watching SharePoint TV. The next interview is coming right up.